As part of my new series on games that were amazing, where else could I start but Goldeneye? I was only 11 when it came out, but I remember the Christmas of 1997 when I got it. I got Goldeneye and Diddy Kong Racing and a brand new N64. Loading up the dam level in front of my whole family, we were like completely amazed. We'd seen Super Mario 64 running on an N64 in some tiny little game shop in Swansea a long time ago, but seeing Goldeneye on our own TV just absolutely blew our minds. It looked so realistic, the characters had the actors' actual faces, even if they were a bit warped and distorted. The environments looked like places from the movie, and in my house we quite liked Bond films, and you know, I think Goldeneye was the first Bond film that I'd seen as a kid, so I was really excited by that. It even had that bungee jump from the dam at the end of the first level. It was like completely enchanting. Of course, now it kind of looks like crap. Even in the emulated gameplay, it's easy to see just how far we've come in the 24 years since its release, but there's still something about the style and the movement that hold up. This is from a time before twin analog sticks were used, remember? Although, in an amazing bit of foresight, there was actually a controller option that used two N64 controllers, one in each hand, with one analog stick for movement and the other one for aiming. And the N64 controller had triggers on the bottom, so you could even use the triggers on the right hand. It was really, really cool, and not something that I saw many people use at the time because N64 controllers were pretty heavy, especially when you had the rumble pack in it and things like that. But it's crazy that the developers of Goldeneye realized that that was a good movement system a long time before it became the standard. But because you don't have that for the normal control system, you've just got one analog stick, there's a ridiculous amount of auto aim in it. There's a huge amount of weapons that could be held at once. Remember when games were like that, where you could just keep on picking up weapons and cycle between them? There were no reload animations, the guns just kind of disappeared off the bottom of the screen. There are plenty of ways to pick holes in the game if you really want, but that first time you hop in the tank on Runway, or hear the soundtrack of Frigate, or chase Trevelyan across the cradle, it's so easy to understand why this game was special. It had large open maps with multiple routes through them, like remember the surface map where you could go between all different bunkers and trudge across the snow sniping people. It had cinematic pacing and challenging encounters. It even had gadgets like the typical Bond gadgets that needed to be used in tense situations like escaping the train, just like in the films. I think for a lot of people, their fondest memory of Goldeneye was probably for the multiplayer. That's the thing that endured. That's the thing that people kept on playing for years and years. Nowadays, obviously it seems kind of archaic. But you need to remember that this was one of the first 3D first-person shooter games on console that had multiplayer for 4 people, and it was amazing. The frame rate does dip into single figures, it's true, it's only 4-player, which seems ridiculous nowadays. Things like visibility and balance were completely uncared for. The whole multiplayer mode was pretty much created by a single developer who was working in a room by themselves, getting the whole thing done. I think in less than 6 months before the game released, they started working on it, and they achieved incredible things, crafting surprisingly large multiplayer maps. Like if you think of like the Archives map, where if you've got Archives and Library, there's one version of it where you've got 3 different floors of the map all put together, and it's huge. Like it's a huge space to wander around, especially for 4 players. The maps all played very differently as well. Like you had maps that were incredibly different from each other, from the sort of like massive temple over to things like Facility, which was obviously a big classic, and then like I said, Library and Archive. There was a wealth of game modes, so you could play things like License to Kill, what is one-shot kill, and there was an options to change weapon pickups all around the map, so you could decide, okay, these are the guns that we want to play with today. And the gunplay meant that all of the guns genuinely felt quite different. Like all of the assault rifles felt very different, all of the pistols felt very different. You could even play as a huge number of Bond characters from across the entire franchise, but obviously you're not allowed to play as Oddjob, but not if you wanted to play at my house again. It innovated in plenty of other ways too. Cheats weren't entered in by putting in a code into the menu. You actually had to complete missions on set difficulties within a time limit to unlock them. Trying to do Facility on the hardest difficulty in under 2 minutes and 5 seconds felt like an absolutely impossible challenge back when I was a kid, but it unlocked the invincibility cheat, which is obviously one of the most exciting ones, so I persevered until I managed it, doing it again and again and again, and that kind of introduced me to the world of speedrunning before I'd ever seen people actually doing speedrunning on YouTube and Twitch and things like that, because they didn't exist back then. Sadly, Goldeneye is kind of difficult to play legally today. You can of course go out and buy an N64 and a Goldeneye cartridge, that's not too expensive, like there's plenty of them about, But then you've got to deal with the lack of HDMI. You're probably going to be using an aerial cable, low resolutions, low frame rates in multiplayer. The aging controllers, like the N64 controllers, didn't hold up that well back then. They weren't the most reliable of things. Nowadays, I imagine there's not that many that are in a great condition. Due to a bizarre set of licenses involved in the game between Nintendo, who published it, Rare, who made it but are now owned by Microsoft, and MGM Studios, who own the Bond license, who are now an Amazon company, it feels unlikely that we're ever going to get a remaster. It feels like the sort of thing that it would be too much work for people to organise all of those people. There was actually work on an Xbox Live Arcade version, which is sort of floating around the internet now. So it nearly did come to Xbox 360, which would have been amazing, but sadly it never ended up getting released. GoldenEye is always going to be an important game to me. It's how I rang in the millennium. On New Year's Eve of 1999, I wired up an N64 to 4 TVs with signal splitters all over the place, had 3 friends over and loads of black cardboard to like hide the rest of the screen, so me and my friends could all play without the risk of screen peeking. It was amazing. Now, X Was Amazing is a new series on my YouTube channel and accompanies X Is Amazing and X Hype as a new direction I'm trying to take the channel in. All about positivity, all about being excited about games, talking about games that I loved, just trying to focus on the brilliant things about gaming. Let me know in the comments which games you think deserve to be included and what your memories of GoldenEye were. Like and subscribe, turn the notifications on, and get told as soon as new videos go live every weekday at Geeky Pastimes.